Hey everybody, it's Laura from Healthy Carnivore. I'm going to go over a little bit of my backstory and kind of let you know why and I do what I do and how I got here. So I'm a registered nurse. I've been in nursing for over 23 years now. I was 313 pounds. I started out at 240 when I graduated in 89. And by 90, I went to the doctor and he kind of talked me into doing the low fat. That was the 90s. Everybody did the low fat. So it was chicken breast and all the crap and no fat, no butter. They didn't want me to eat eggs, but I was like, I just can't believe that eggs are bad. So I never did give up the butter or the eggs. I didn't eat tons of it, but I did have some of it. Um, anyway, I went to my physician who, he was medically trained, as all of them. And he wanted to put me on a statin. And I was 20 and I'd gotten up to 313 pounds following his eating guidelines, um, and was sick. I was very unhealthy. I was metabolically sick. I was borderline type 2 diabetes. In fact, he said the next year when I would come that they were going to teach me how to use a glucose monitor and I would probably be doing insulin. I was going to bypass oral medications because of how bad. I mean, my triglycerides were at least 1,000. They don't know how high they were because that's as high as their meter would go. Um, so I just kind of went out and did some of my own old style research where you actually looked at the books and the medical journals and the veterinarian things, and just stumbled onto this eating single ingredient foods, knowing that like they even talked about like polychained fats, different things like that, things that you hear people and scientists say today, and you're like, oh boy, they're pretty smart. And it's like, no, they knew that back in 1850, they knew that. They've known a lot of this stuff. And I mean, it's well documented. You have to dig to find it, but it's out there. Anyway, I decided to throw away everything white. Um, Actually, I gave it to the food pantry, but now I would throw it in the trash and lost 153 pounds in 9 months. And that was without exercise. I mean, I worked, but I didn't have anything left to muster up any kind of working out. Of course, now I know it's because I wasn't taking in hardly any fat. But I did lose 153 pounds, just ate stuff that we grew in the garden, what we fished, what we hunted for, things like that. So it was all single ingredient foods. I didn't buy anything that was in packages until 26 years into my keto journey when the carnivore or the keto treats came out. So, like your Quest bars and different things like that, your Atkins bars. And I always had a sweet tooth. So I went for the ones that tasted like Oreos and Cookie Bar or Cookie Dough, I think was another one, and wrecked my gut. My gut cannot handle like maltodextrin. It can't handle loads of sugar alcohols and destroyed my stomach. Um, then I suffered with that for 2 years, staying the course. I mean, my nails were dug in. I'm like, I'm still doing keto, kind of, when you're adding in that junk. So I was just scrolling and I came across a Joe Rogan podcast with Mr. Sean Baker, Dr. Sean Baker, and he was talking carnivore, and something just resonated with me. I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. Like, this is it. Um, and I started the very next day. My personality is all or none, so very easy to jump into something and put 100% into it. I don't have to tiptoe in, which is not saying that tiptoeing in is a bad thing. I think it's very valuable for a lot of people to do it that way, because a lot of people like you can't like you can get really sickly feeling. So a lot of times that would stop you from going any further. So I'm just very pig-headed and was like, I'm doing this no matter what. So I did gain 10 pounds in the beginning of my carnivore journey, which freaked me out. My nursing scrubs were getting extremely not tight, but uncomfortable to where, I like to get down on the floor when I see my patients, in their homes, kneel down a lot, stuff like that. And they were uncomfortable enough for me. And then just a switch happened and it came right back off. And then I just felt amazing. It cured a lot of my issues, my anxiety, depression, a little bit of my OCD. It kind of curtailed how extreme that was. That took about 3 weeks to notice. Acne cleared up. The inflammation was within just a week. I could tell. I was like, I can work out. I can do all these things. I had started working out when I was about 39. So, and I am currently 54, and I still implement working out 6 days a week, usually, um, sometimes 7 days. It just depends. And it's not crazy amount. It's like 30 minutes at the most ever. And that's usually on my sprinting days where I'll sprint multiple times and rebound and push ups on that day. And then alternate days, I do like functional stretching and I do like lifting weights with my arms. So that's kind of what I do now. Um, I didn't do a lot of exercising Friday, Saturday, or Sunday because it was deer season here in the state of Illinois. So it was a wonderful season so far. I got two, um, two deer, very big deer. So one's a doe, and one is a buck, but very big bodied. 95 pounds of hamburger alone off of the female doe. Uh, 10 packages with 4 steaks, like butterflied steaks I did, 2 loins, trying to think if that was it. Oh, and then I mixed in with the hamburger, ribeye fat, of course, and then 1 liver and 2 kidneys into that whole thing. So it's not gonna taste like liver, it's not gonna smell like liver when it cooks, but you're getting some of it in there, just little baby doses of it, which is the only way I can do it. I cannot eat liver plain. Well, even the thought of it makes me wanna kinda gag. The taste reminds me of the smell of a burning tire, but I also don't require a lot of iron, so maybe that's why. So, anyway, good season, been a rough day. I was off today, from work, but I did process the entire deer, and when I say process the entire deer, neck meat, rib meat, nothing is left. I'd leave nothing behind. I kinda figured that you're taking one of God's creatures, and I'm planning to eat it, and so I don't wanna waste any of it. Everything is used, the bones, the hooves, those will be cooked down, then I process and puree them in, like, a food processor with some collagen and some gelatin, a teaspoon of turmeric, 2 teaspoons of red mint salt, and then I put those in gumdrop, candy molds, like the ones that are shaped for like large gumdrops. I have some that are bone shaped. I have some that are pumpkin shaped, and I put those in there and I just let them sit in a cool, dry place for a couple weeks till they're completely set up and dried, and then put them in either baggies or containers. And I usually give those out to my patients' dogs as long as they're agreeable. So I have lots of those because these were big deer. Very good, very good. So I was happy with that. Let me just go back and see who's here before I get started on tonight's topic. Hey, Simpson. Hey, Freethinker is here. Diamond. Let's see. Hi, Laura. My package arrived. Oh, awesome. That's great. Good, good, good. Um, Thorward says good evening. Hello. Hey, T. Let's see. Let me scoot that down a little bit so I can read what she said. Meaty Monday. Uh, hey, Kelly. Hi. She says, hi, Laura. Sandy says, watching. Good. Karen says, good evening, Laura. Hello, friends. And then Janice says, good evening. You must process. Oh, yes. So when it comes to deer, yes, we process 100% ourselves. I am frugal and I am not spending that kind of money to process a deer that I can do with my own hands. And I don't have any like super fancy equipment. We literally use the old saw like you would use to cut a limb down to take the legs and stuff off. Um, and I use my KitchenAid mixer, and I just bought an attachment that goes onto it that grinds. And otherwise, the rest of it I just do by hand. It did take all day, but it was a big dough. I mean, big, big dough. So, but yes, I process it myself. I don't I think it was $300 is the running cost of at the meat marketplace that's closest to us to do a deer. And if you figure that in, plus the cost of your deer tags, plus the cost of your gas, plus the cost of your ammunition, plus the cost of your gun over years, I think that'd make the meat like 12 or $13 a pound. And the way I do it, it's about 3. So I prefer that cost. That's much better. And plus, I know it is my deer. When you take them to a processor, you are not guaranteed your deer. So if somebody decides to shoot some old stinky buck that's got pus pockets on it, they're just going to mix it all together, and they do not take that out. Just FYI. Okay. I'm going to go over tonight's topic that we're going to do. This was specifically asked by one of the viewers, wanted me to go over this. I had a patient years ago that I think this is probably what they had, but I had never heard of it being called this name. They just said that they had hypopristalisis, and had to be on feeding tube and stuff like that. But the more I looked at this, I'm like, I am pretty sure that that's what that little boy had. And like I said, this is like 23 years ago, at least, maybe 24. I might have been a CNA at the time. So anyway, so it goes by MMIHS, which is Megacystic-mirocolon-intestinal hypopristalisis syndrome. That's a lot of words. So it is a congenital birth defect, and it is very rare. I couldn't find where it said how many people in the United States. It just kept saying rare, rare, rare. So I'm guessing it's less than 3%. When you see it like listed like that, it's such a small number. So some of the things that kind of go with this, and I'll tell you that that's what I saw with this child. The bladder is massively enlarged. I mean, huge. I mean, just massive. If you saw the size of a normal bladder and then you saw these, I mean, it is massive. So that's called megacystitis. The intestines are very, very underdeveloped. The other thing is that's called microcolon. So very, very underdeveloped. And then the movements in your colon, in your intestines are called peristalsis, and that's the muscle contraction that moves the waste along. They are very weak. If these people have any at all, they're very weak if they have those contractions. So this leads to severe feeding and digestive problems, often requiring total parenteral nutrition, which is called TPN. And that's where you'll see those plastic bottles hung that are kind of tan in color with the tube going into an IV. Sometimes they have ones that go, they have different types of tube feedings that can go into the stomach, but these people do not do so well with those because their issue is downstream from the stomach. So like what I saw with this little kid was his bladder was massive. It would press against the kidneys, it pressed against the renal arteries. He was having trouble getting blood flow to the kidneys because of how big this was, and was causing him to have like his BUN and creatinine and stuff was just off the charts. The other thing was he would vomit quite often if he tried to eat anything by mouth because it was so slow of passing through. It was like it just kept filling up and filling up. And so he'd try to eat something because he wanted it, the taste of it. And then it'd come back up because there was no space for it down there. And so it would push up through the sphincter and he'd get sick. And it happened a lot. So another term for this is called Berdon, Berdon syndrome. So you can look it up if you want to on that too. A little bit easier than typing in the whole word. So the cause, like I said, it is genetic. Most commonly, it is tied to what they call the ACTG2 mutations, which you can actually go out there. I'm not a Google fan, but you can go to different public medical places and type in these type of mutations, and you can do like the MTHFR, MTR. There's all these kind of things that you can type in, and you can see exactly where on the genes where the issue is. So this mutation is the actin gamma 2, a smooth muscle protein important for that muscle contraction. So that is part of the issue that they have is this smooth muscle. They don't have it, and they really need that. Other mutations can also cause it, but the ACTG2 is the primary one that we find linked to this specific outcome. So, what these people, well, and I'll just tell you for this little boy, and this, like I said, was a long time ago. Probably, I don't know if they even knew about how bad this was, but they would put him on a protocol of like tube feeding, and then it was like they thought, well, maybe he's healed. And then they'd go back to feeding him, and it'd be like this whole cycle of he'd do it again, and then he'd be sick, and then he's back up at the hospital. And it was just back and forth. I don't think they realized that this is permanent. There are things you can do that help alleviate the symptoms and better nutrition that you can get certain ways, which I'll go over that. But this is one thing where genetics definitely was not good for them. Um, so I don't know if anybody here has heard of the GAPS diet. So it is a plant-free GAPS diet is what it's called. So that is gut and psychology syndrome is kind of where you get the GAPS name from. It's a diet, but it is without any plant foods, any, I mean, zero plant foods, especially an animal-based carnivore style version is what these children are usually put on, even when it comes to the tube feedings. So I told my husband when I was researching this months ago, I'm like, if I ever am in a car accident and something happens to me and I have to be on any kind of tube feeding, you take this with you. Because I always type this up. I said, you take this with you, and this is what they have to give me. I don't want the other shit that's in the regular TPN. So it focuses on easily digestible animal foods, so meats, broths, organs, and then animal fats. So they avoid all plant fibers, every single nothing, starches and irritants that can worsen motility issues or feed gut bacteria. This is where, which this was way back, but like those sugar alcohols would not be a good thing for these people at all. So, why would you use like the carnivore version for people who have MMIHS? These kids, because this is when it shows up when they're 1, 2, 3 years old is when they find it. So kids often cannot tolerate plant matter. The fiber and the carbs, all they do is they ferment. They sit stagnant due to not moving through the system, and they just sit there and putrefy. We can call it fermenting, we can call it putrefying. When it is inside the body, I call it putrefying. There are certain fermented foods that are good for the rest of us. These are not. These kids are not, should not be doing anything that way. So animal foods are absorbed more efficiently in the small intestine. Um, and it's so broke down by the enzymes that you don't need as much of that peristalsis to chew to kind of move the stuff along. If you ever want to watch and hear somebody's story, Lee from Kent Carnivore, he can tell you that like when he eats a ginormous steak, what it looks like when it comes into his bag, and he lost his whole colon. So that it is broken down by the time it gets through the small intestine, not laying in your colon for 10 years like they told us for a long time. Um, so for kids on tubes, formula can be made, and it can be made from carnivore style meat stock. Now, these would not be TPN that goes into the vein. This would be one where they are putting it through a G tube. Okay. Um, it would be meat stock, animal fat, and blended meats that they should be able, I mean, you'd have to try, but they should be able to get the nutrients out of those, because it doesn't matter about how fast the motility of moving that stuff along. So some families report better tolerance, reduced bloating. And that's the thing. They have these giant little bellies, like, they're these little kids and their bellies are huge, the bladder. And the funny, not really funny, but the thing is with their urination here, they've got this giant bladder and they can't hardly urinate. because that smooth muscle does not contract to give them that sense of, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. So they end up, yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. So they said they do have reduced bloating, less vomiting, and improved nutrient absorption. So to me, that's a win-win. Um, so that being said, it ends up that being carnivore, um, therapeutically, even through G tubes, it doesn't cure it, okay? But because it is a genetic motility problem, but it can reduce their symptoms, dependence on TPN. You guys, you should go out just when you have time and look up what is in TPN for nutrition. It'll blow your mind. Um, the other thing that happens with these children is they tend to have much smaller stature because if they don't catch this early enough and get them on the proper eating, and getting the nutrients in there, they very much have stunted growth, thinning hair, the things that you would expect when you're not getting the nutrients. Um, so I think, you're going to see improved growth. And like I said, I've already done told my husband that anything ever happens to me, I'm not against a feeding tube for very, very, very short term, but it would have to have that. I'm not having TPN. So hopefully he listens. I'm sure he will because he doesn't want me to haunt him because I would. Anyway, if you like this, if there's somebody like there's not a lot of people that have this, but if you know of somebody who has children or a child who has a lot of these symptoms, this might be a good one to share out with them to be like, hey, maybe this is something you should ask your doctor to do a genetic test to see if this might be something that that they carry. I didn't see a whole lot of information saying if it had to be both from mom and dad or if you could get it just with one segment. You get so much of yours from mom, so much from your dad. All your mitochondria comes from the mom side. I don't think I think it's so rare that they haven't done a lot of work on it. So hopefully in the future, that is something that they will put some time and effort into. If there was a medication for it, I guarantee you they'd be doing some big old research. So I'm going to go over next Monday's live. So what I'm going to do over that is another one that somebody asked me to really go over what causes fatty liver. And when I say fatty liver, I'm talking about the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that we have seen severe explosion in not only young adults, but children. This used to be a disease. You'd find this fatty liver in usually alcoholics in their 60s or 70s, usually men, but now you're seeing this in very, very young children. I mean, the ages of like 7, 8, 9 that have this fatty liver disease. So I will go over that. And yeah, it's pretty interesting what our food can do to us or what our food can do for us. I prefer to do food that it does something good for me. So today, actually, I ate two deer steaks about that big around. Like I said, I butterfly them so they kind of sit open like that, and ribeye fat. And that's what I had for today. And it was delicious. And how fresh, like literally was 48 hours old. Normally, I do hang my deer longer than we did for her. The buck is still out there, and we did take the hide off and everything on him, cooling him out. But the weather it was kind of warm. And I was like, man, I don't want to lose any of the meat. And we don't do a cooler. We hang it in our garage and we've got a thing that goes underneath of it or whatever. Um, but I was like, boy, I don't want to lose any of it. And neither one of my deer this year were real gamey smelling. So what that means is they have glands on their back legs down close to the hooves. And normally, like in rut, which is when they're mating, normally, and it was rut. This year's rut was late, and neither one of the deer were like smelling, they usually urinate on that. I'm not sure why. It's what works out for them. It's not something I would be attracted to, but it's what the animal kingdom likes. But Neither one of them were really stinky. Like, they didn't have any gamey smell to them whatsoever. And the dough that I was cutting up today, when I cooked that, I was like, wow, you could not even tell that it was deer. Because sometimes deer does have a little bit of gamey taste and smell to it, and you can kind of smell it when you're cooking. Not at all. So I was very happy with that. Oh, and I did mix up some that was a little bit more liver in it for my grandson who turns 13 December 6th, and he loves deer liver. He calls it deer liver burger, and he absolutely loves it. So I made him up about 15 2-pound packs that I'm going to take to him on his birthday. So that's what I will be doing. So anyway, I do appreciate you guys being here. If you like this, hit the subscribe button and then also hit the notification bell. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I did have a couple people last week reach out to me and said, I've been subscribed. Now all of a sudden I'm not. I don't know. I don't know what YouTube does and doesn't do. I'm sure there's things on here they don't like that I say, but everything I say, I have evidence base. So I've had a couple times where they've been like, well, this is a strike. And I'm like, here, this comes from NIH, WHO, PubMed, Harvard, the UCLA, and every time they've been like, okay, well, the strike's been removed. And I'm like, yeah, because I dig. I don't just be like, oh, spend 2 minutes, trying to figure out this information. So I am going to I'm going to add one to my repertoire on gut health coming up. It'll be a little bit because I already have all mine kind of scheduled out so far, but I will be doing one on gut health coming up because that seems to be a big thing. Everybody's guts are kind of tore up with the food. So anyway, I do appreciate you guys being here. I will see you guys for sure next Monday. Until then, meet, heat, eat, and repeat. See ya.